Hi, boys. I wanted to, since you saw him last video, I wanted to show you Dash. Say hi, Dash. Oh, there's the cat, Gabby. So, before I started reading, I just wanted to show you Dash. So if you hear him, you know, y'all have met him before. Okay, I hope everybody's doing good. Hope you're resting. I miss y'all. I really do. I miss you a lot. And I hope we get back to normal soon, but if not, enjoy your time at home. And we're going to continue reading Infinity Ring, Book 4, Curse of the Ancients, Chapter 2. Fashionably early. Sorry. When Dak saw Sarah emerge from behind the sculpture-covered stone wall, he had to cover his mouth with a fist to stifle a laugh. "What?" Sarah said. "Nothing," Dak told her, launching into a fit of fake coughing. She was dressed in a crazy-looking sack with a hole cut out of the head, as well as a long, colorful skirt that dragged on the dirt behind her when she walked. But the weirdest part was how closely she resembled one of them, the Mayans. Same skin color and high cheekbones. Same coarse dark hair. If Sarah wanted, she could probably pass for a local. And I remember in the last book, we learned that Sarah is Latino. So she does have darker skin. So we're learning more about these kids. So Dak, we assume, is just a white kid. And we know Rick, based on the last book, is African American. And now we know from also the last book, Sarah is Latino. Now was not the time to bring it up, of course. They just downloaded a seemingly impossible riddle on the S-Square, and Dak had been best friends with Sarah long enough to know not to mess with her. "Go on, Dak," Sarah said. "I promise," he told her. "It's nothing." "Say it," she demanded. The look on her face told him she wasn't going to drop it. "Okay, fine," he said. "I was just thinking about, how nice of an outfit that is." "Like your loincloth is any better," Sarah said, pointing below his waist. "It's not a loincloth," Dak said, instinctively covering himself up. "It's a breechcloth." He looked down at the clothes Rick had swiped for him off a tree near a cluster of nearby huts. "And maybe your vision's been compromised after all the crying you've been doing back there. But I'm also clearly wearing pants." "More like leggings," Sarah said. Dak turned to Rick for help. He was wearing the exact same outfit, but Rick was too busy peeking out from under the overhang that was keeping them out of the rain, watching the Mayans continuing to hurry past. Dak sighed. Sometimes it gets lonely trying to rescue history all by himself. "Can I see the riddle one more time?" Rick asked, turning back to the others. Sarah handed over the S-Square, and the three of them studied the nonsensical words for the 10th time. "A snake charmer and a clown. A treasure that never was. A gift from the deity Istamna. From 9-10-5-10. Okay, so there's a series of numbers. I know you won't be able to see them, but they're dots like that. So I don't know how I'm supposed to say that. 9.10.5.10.7. So a gift from deity Islama from that to 11.17.2.13.10. And a trace of the symbol of the Sebian tree toward the truth of the curse. Dak threw up his hands in the air. Impossible! He didn't have the first idea how to approach it. And usually he was pretty good at working through the cryptic clues the historians had left so they'd know which break to fix. "We have to make a decision," Rick said, looking up at Dak and Sarah. "We either search for a better place to wait out the rain, or we ignore it and concentrate on solving the riddle." "It's not even a question," Sarah said. "We have to figure out where we should be and what we should be doing." Sorry. You think you can do it in these conditions? Rick asked. I know I can. We've cracked number of ciphers before. Then let's get to work. Guys, Dak said, excuse me. When they both turned to face him, he said, don't you think I should maybe have some say in this too? What is it, Dak? She said. Well, it's been a while since we've eaten, right? I mean, technically, it's been several hundred years. Sarah rolled her eyes. And your point is? Dak motioned to Rick. What do you say we send this guy off to find us a nice cheese plate? I'm thinking Gruyere and cheddar, maybe a few twigs and grapes on the side. Oh, and saltines. Sarah's mouth fell open. Are you kidding me right now, Dak? Fine. Nix the saltines, Dak said. I get it. You're in the mood for something a bit classier. Let's go ahead and spring for some Triscuits then. An absolute child, Rick said, shaking his head. Oh, and the Triscuits have SQ in them. Oh, let me see that. Like the S square and everything. It's S Triscuits. That's funny. Sarah and Rick both turned away from Dak and began tinkering with the S square. Seriously, though, Dak called to them, aren't you guys hungry? They ignored him. Dak watched them work for a few minutes. Sarah obviously knew what she was doing. She was a genius when it came to science, so working with numbers came somewhat naturally to her. And as a language whiz, Rick had an advantage over Dak whenever their clues involved codes or ciphers. Knowing that didn't make it any easier to be benched, though. Whatever, Dak muttered under his breath. He wandered a few yards away. The stone wall sat against it, watching the rain and thinking about the riddle. A snake charmer. A clown. A treasure that never was. The truth of the curse. None of it rang any bells. Being left alone like this reminded Dak of what got them into this history-saving situation in the first place. Just a few days ago, wait, how was he supposed to measure days while traveling through time? He couldn't exactly consult a modern calendar, and the Mayan version wouldn't do him any good. However long it was, the last time they were back home in the present, he had mistakenly let Sarah into his parents' lab where she had been obsessed with the infinity ring, ignoring him for hours and hours and hours, just like she was ignoring him now. Dak shook his head, thinking about that fateful day. What if he'd never shown her what his parents were working on? Sarah never would have figured out the missing piece of the puzzle. And if she hadn't figured out the missing piece of the puzzle, they never would have taken the stupid test run back to the Revolutionary War. And his parents wouldn't be lost somewhere in time right now. Dak watched several more Mayans race down the white street, carrying their children in their arms. It was a strange sight considering the rain was hardly more than a lazy drizzle, though the wind was definitely picking up now. Dak leaned his head back against the wall, fingering the iron key that he had tucked in the side of his leggings. His parents had given it to him in the year 911, somehow knowing that he would need it to escape the S square in 1850. It boggled his mind. Dak squeezed his eyes shut, tightening his grip on the key, and imagined their faces. He understood what he, Sarah, and Rick were doing was monumentally important. They were literally saving the world. And he loved warping back to different parts of history, seeing famous events unfold right before his eyes. But lately, in secret, Dak wondered if he wouldn't ditch all the historics in exchange for having his mom and dad back in his life, even for one day. These thoughts made Dak feel guilty, so he got up and hustled back over to Sarah and Rick, saying, "Never fear, my fellow time traveler comrades. I've come to save the day. Please, how might my talents be utilized?" They didn't even acknowledge his existence. Guys, nothing. Dak shrugged. They didn't need him, he didn't need them either. He turned to go and explore the wet Mayan village on his own. If he was lucky, he'd find some vital clue to the riddle, which he wouldn't share with anyone. So he's going to wander off by himself, and if he finds a clue, not share it? Well, that's not the end of the chapter. It's just one of those page breaks. Dak found himself crossing back over the white road toward a large dome building a little ways off. It looked like an observatory. He cupped a hand against his forehead to keep the rain out of his eyes. It was so hot and humid, he was almost thankful to be wearing a breechcloth. It was actually keeping him fairly cool and allowed for occasional drafts that provided tremendous refreshment. What if he started rocking one of these bad boys in the present? Would it catch on? He pictured all of his bros in 5th grade wearing them too, sitting around the calf, talking, lining up for assemblies. Eventually they run into a nice profile pic on him in the school picture next to the caption, Dak Smith, more than just your ordinary history genius. Then he remembered one very important fact. He didn't really have any bros, unless he counted Sarah, which he decided he did. Dak tried all the doors of the observatory, but they were locked. He was surprised by the size of the building. According to his research in Mesoamerican civilizations, the Mayans were curious about astrology and art and music, but they didn't have the technology for anything overly refined. For instance, they probably weren't spreading their cheese on Triscuits. Thunder crashed so loud overhead, Dak flinched. The rain started falling harder too, and at an odd angle. Dak knew he should hurry back to the others, get out of the brewing storm, but just then he spotted a narrow opening in the observatory wall, like a small glassless window. He moved toward it and peered inside, the rain raking down on his back. It was dark inside except for a few candles that burned near the far wall of the large room. Next to this wall, which had a large painting of a tree, there were 3 older men kneeling on the floor, writing on a massive sheet of paper-like material. The thing was longer than they were tall. Then on the floor beside them, Dak spotted something else, a colorful mask, the kind a clown might wear. Dak immediately thought of the riddle. Maybe there was some sort of connection. And then Dak considered something else, something potentially incredible. What if these men were working on the Great Mayan Codex? He knew there was probably some codices in a type of book produced near this era, but his heart sped up anyway, because everything around him made him think he was in the 7th century. And that meant it was possible that he was witnessing the composition of one of the most revered texts of all history. Dak pounded on the wall, so excited he was having trouble breathing. As soon as the men looked up, though, he thought better of it and ducked out of sight. Because of the authors of the Great Mayan Codex had prophesied that the SQ would one day come along and save all mankind. It was possible that the authors themselves were SQ, or even a group of time wardens whom the SQ had positioned throughout history to protect their agenda from meddling time travelers like Dak. He crouched there for several long minutes trying to think. Rain pummeled his entire body, puddling around his knees and elbows. He finally pushed away from the observatory and sprinted back across the road. He had to go tell Rick and Sarah about the clown mask and the codex, even if they didn't deserve to know. When Dak finally rounded the stone wall and spotted his friends, he stopped in his tracks. "No," he said under his breath. Rick and Sarah were surrounded by 3 thuggish-looking Mayans, one of whom was holding the infinity ring in his grimy hands. And that is the end of the chapter. The next chapter, which I will upload later, is called storm relief. But this sounds like an interesting book because it's the second chapter and already the Infinity Ring is in enemy hands. What are they going to do? I don't know. Let's keep reading, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye.